My name is Dr. Nitin Thapa, and I'm a physician in Redmond, Washington.
Could you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Uh, my childhood, I was born in Kathmandu, Nepal, but for most of the part I lived in a southern part of Nepal, close to India. After high school, I went to study medicine in Russia.
What was the name of the university you attended?
It was Tver State Medical Academy in Russia.
Was there any worry in going to the Soviet Union? I mean, you being a student from a different country in a communist state might have been a little bit stressful, no?
No, it wasn't. As a matter of fact, there was quite a trend those days to go to Soviet Union to get higher education. So there was no stress at all.
So how old were you when you went to Russia?
I was about 21 years old.
20 years old, so straight out of college, going to medical school?
Yep.
How would you describe the first 3 months of living there?
It was interesting one. Soviet Union was breaking out. They were dissolving in the background. So there were a lot of chaos about how the country, what new country will take shape. And there was lack of supplies for people out there. So it was quite a bit of struggle for most of the people at that time. People were worried, very much worried. They were stressed out too because nobody knew what's going to be in the future, or how the government going to take shape and how they're going to take care of people. So yeah, they were worried and they were pretty much, in despair. They didn't know what's going to happen. So there was lack of supply because in Soviet, different things will come from different country and they will come to the central government and they will disperse. So because there was no central government, so it was quite a chaos of to maintain the chain of supply and demand. So that was the main reason why people had no supplies.
What was the general atmosphere in Russia regarding the fall of communism?
Yeah, they were concerned about their own future. There was less talk about outsiders or outside worlds. They were mostly focused about how their future is going to be and what type of government it's going to be, whether it's going to be a transition from Soviet regime to another type of Soviet regime, or the government going to be open for everybody. So there was uncertainty, chaos, and like I said, nobody knew what's going to happen.
So you did not know what was going to happen to the government. You didn't know if it was going to be democratic or another type of communism or socialism. You didn't really know.
Yeah, I didn't know and nobody knew at that time. But
So-
it was pretty clear that Soviet's going to go away and it's going to be some kind of democratic regime.
Okay. And for you going to a private college, was it the same for you or were you better off?
It wasn't a private college, it was a state-funded, government-funded college. But story for us was, I would say no difference because our university was well funded by the government. So there was no problem going to the medical school back then.
How hospitable were the Soviets to a foreign student?
They were very hospitable. They were very friendly. They would treat us like their own family members.
Was your graduating class diverse or was it mostly Russians?
It was pretty diverse class. I studied with students from about 30 or so countries, so it was pretty diverse students. I mean, diverse population over there.
Okay. How did you spend most days?
Well, most days being in a medical school was a hard one, I would say. I would wake up at 6:30, be in class by 7:30 or sometimes 8 o'clock, or go to the hospital by 8 o'clock. Most of the days I would come back to my hostel by 6 o'clock. Sometimes if I have night duties, I would do that and come back after 24 hours or so. So yeah, that used to be the most of the days. And weekends we used to go out. I always used to go hang out with my other friends from Nepal and other countries, and we also used to go out in some different cities or villages like that. So it was quite interesting and it was quite a nice time, I would say.
So how did you get from home to your class on a usual basis?
There used to be public transportation. I mean, it was always public transportation, either by bus or by tram. And sometime when I had to go to different cities, we used to take the metro, which is underground railway system.
So you said that for you, food and all of that was fine because you weren't most super affected by the collapse of the union. So what did you usually eat, and how was it prepared?
Well, in the daytime, I used to eat at the cafeteria, and they had plenty of supplies. There was no problem. And usually at evening, we had in a dorm. I used to cook for myself. We had a group of students. We used to get together and cook sometimes. So it used to vary.
Okay. So how did you make money? Because obviously living far away, you need money to buy things and supplies. So did you have a job there?
But I was in a scholarship, so I didn't have to pay for tuition, and the scholarship was enough for education needs, books and supplies, and basic transportation, and basic food. But I also used to get money from my parents from home for other needs. So, and there was no need to work, and nobody, in fact, as a matter of fact, no international student used to work or had time to work because the education load was so heavy.
How drastic were the changes from living in your home country to the Soviet Union?
It wasn't that drastic. I mean, the transition was, I would say, smooth. Yeah, there were a couple of months initially, not knowing how to cook and not knowing how to take care of myself was a little bit challenges. But over the time, I learned how to, manage myself, how to cook, how to take care of my stuff. So, and there was no problem. So, and we were in the group, and everybody did, the same way. So we learned from each other. So yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
How long did it take you to learn the language?
Language, initially there was a 1 year of language class, but in a week or so we were able to go out in the street and purchase things for ourselves. In 1 or 2 months we used to do basic conversation. By 3 months we were pretty, we could talk about almost any general conversation. And by 6 months I would say we were very proficient in talking in Russian. But language class lasted for 1 year.
Okay, so they taught you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But okay, what did most Russians think about America and Americans?
Well, Russians used to, or still I guess now, think that America is a very democratic country who respects freedom of speech and values people, and everybody is treated pretty fairly. So in most of the part, Russians or Soviets had very good perception about America and Americans.
So there weren't any tensions at all?
No, not on the public level, but I'm sure the government level there was some tension, and then the media would portray it differently about America. They would talk about differently, but for general people, I think it was pretty. They had a good perception and good opinion about American Americans.
What was the biggest difference between communism, living in a communist country versus living in a democratic country?
Well, I lived while I was a student in Soviet Union or in Russia, and so it was different then. But for the most people, I could say that there was a sense of regularity. There was a good supply of goods while there was Soviets. The medicine was free, education was free, and then the government workers had most of the transportations free. Their food were rationed, but it was most of the part, I would say, cheap for them. So it was easy life for them. And yeah, but living in a democratic country, if we call America a democratic country, it's quite a different now. I would say it's more of the capitalistic approach. So it's a quite different scenario here.
Okay. After you graduated, did you immediately go out of Russia, or did you stay there for a little bit?
No, I went immediately out, went to Nepal, start working there.
Were you gravitated in any way to stay in Russia after graduating there?
Not at all. That was not my plan to begin with. I wanted to go study and go out and work in Nepal.
Was there any reason you didn't want to work in Russia other than the fact that you would wish to work in Nepal?
Yeah, there was not any reason to study. I mean, stay there and work in Russia. I was motivated to work in Nepal from the beginning. So
Would working in Russia have been okay, or would it have not been as good as working somewhere else?
uh, that's a tough question. But I know a couple of my friends stayed there for a couple of years before going back to their own country. So it's a personal thing, to whom what environment suits. For me, I was pretty sure that that's not the environment I would be working on, and my main focus was to go back to Nepal and start working.
What were some common misconceptions about the Soviet Union or living in Russia?
Well, the most misconception was, I guess, people or outsiders would think that the Soviets were evil, but I would say that's wrong, because how I witnessed and how I have seen that they were helping other countries with education, with medicine, with engineering. So that was a misconception. The other misconception is or was that Soviets were technologically less advanced, but actually I think that is a wrong conception, because the Soviets were the one who put the first orbiting satellite, Sputnik, and yeah, I think these are a couple of misconceptions. But it's true that the Soviet regime was sometimes harsh to their own people. But for others, I guess there are a lot of misconceptions.
So, when you were there, what were some examples of how harsh they could be?
Well, I didn't have to experience on that, but I used to see in the news on some paper that some people has been, taken away by the government people in suspicion of some espionage or things like that. But that was in a political level. For general people, I think that was not a problem at all.
Was the government controlling in any way of people that lived there?
I mean, it's again the media, but personally, I didn't have that kind of experience, or I didn't see anybody in front of me being taken away by government people. So, I don't know.
What do you miss the most about living there?
Well, I was a student, young, so of course, I had not to worry about anything but my studies. I miss my friends. I miss, the atmosphere, the European atmosphere, the diversity of students coming from different countries, and then the college affairs and things like that. So these are things that I miss.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming out today.